Arizona basketball is rolling in non-conference play and have beaten basketball royalty throughout the season, but they'll also be crowned, winning their first Big 12 title this season.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host, Leif Thulin, your resident college basketball guru, stats nerd, point guard by game, and ball knower by trade, and I'm excited to talk Arizona hoops with you today. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time, so terms and conditions do apply. Today on the show, I'll break down why Arizona should be favored to win the Big 12 conference, along with should be #1 in the country when the AP poll comes out on Monday. And I'll break down the tier hierarchy I see in the best conference in college basketball this season. That's the Big 12. Let's dive right in. First things first, Arizona's really, really good right now. They are very good. And like I said, after beating UConn, just like I said before beating UConn, Arizona should be #1 in the country because they have the best resume. They had it already. They certainly do now. And I actually think the best news for Arizona is not being rewarded to be #1, but it's that they're not close to their ceiling. They have a ton of things to improve that are super tangible and palpable while watching them play that you can say, okay, like this is not going well. And yet we're beating UConn, yet beating UCLA, yet they're beating Florida. And they've done it in tumultuous situations. They've done it in certainly not the most straightforward of fashions, trailing by double digits in 2 of the 3 games. And one of them, they gave up a double-digit lead. I think that's really scary for the rest of the country to think that Arizona's beaten these teams and they start 4 freshmen they start 3 freshmen. They play 4 freshmen out of their 8 players. And I want to clarify something. Every team that has legitimate hopes to win a national title, and those hopes actually are attainable for 8, 9 teams in the country, those teams are never good enough in November to win a national championship at that level. No team that ever wins a title is better in November than they are in March and April. So Arizona is no special thing in that department that they're going to improve. A lot of teams are going to improve in the next couple months. An example that pops into my head is Auburn. Last year, if the tournament were played in November or December, Auburn wins the championship. And especially if you simulated it 10 times, I think Auburn wins it 7 times. They were great at the start of the year. They were really, really good by the end of the year, too. They made the Final Four. By no means is that a failed season. But I had very little belief that they could win a championship because by the end of the season, I could see with my eyes that Florida was better, that Duke was better, and that Houston was better. And I would make the argument that a team like Texas Tech would have had a chance to beat Auburn. And teams that could really shoot the 3 and had enough size on the interior to stay with Janai Broome would have a chance. I digress. I love that stuff. But my point being is every team that has a chance to win a championship, which Arizona absolutely does, will get a lot better. So it's not one-off. But Arizona has a massive advantage in terms of their growth. They have 4 freshmen playing solid minutes, 3 starting, and no one grows throughout a course of the season more than freshmen do. And when you have freshmen that are used to playing high schoolers and being the guy at all times, and all of a sudden they're playing off the ball and their job is to hit threes and they're not hitting threes, that becomes something that's very possible to get better. It may never be the strength, and it doesn't have to be. It shouldn't be for this team, but it's something that can really get better. Think about this. Arizona's only hit 4 threes in combined wins over Florida and UConn, the 3 reigning national champions. UConn won twice in a row and then Florida. And both those teams came in number 3 and number 4 in the AP poll and are good teams. What Arizona has that few teams have at this point, and why they're, in my opinion, the best team in the country right now, is they know their identity to a T. They know that their identity is scoring on the interior, and they know how to get there in a plethora of ways. It can be a penetration from Jaden Bradley. It can be a high post entry to Koa Pete and let him get his way to the hoop. It can be a high-low from Koa Pete to Mo Krivas or Tobe Awaka, and they'll bury their way into the basket. Arizona scores 57% of all their points from 2, and a vast majority of those points are from within 5 feet away from the rim. It's high percentage offense. It's super repeatable. Win the glass, like you did against UConn. You're not going to beat everyone by 20 like they did against UConn. It'll be more dominant than it was against Florida +2 and more dominant than it was against UCLA +7, but likely not +20 dominant that often, which makes their already great first shot offense even better with a good amount of second chance points, like the 16 they had against the Huskies. That's been a formula for Tommy Lloyd for years. Play quickly, have bigs, rebound the ball, shoot high percentage shots. What this year has that makes Arizona better is that their defense is top notch. And I'm not going to mince words. They are top notch. I laid out this outline that I actually got some pushback of this year's Arizona Wildcats team looking like last year's Cooper Flagg led Duke team because they had many big bodies. They had freshman starters at power forward and shooting guard, which was Con Knipple at the shooting guard and Cooper Flagg at the 4. And it's Koa Pete and Braden Burries. But more over, it was about how they have these same philosophy of defensively, you play all these big bodies around this precocious freshman, and you defend at a really high level. You rebound at a really high level, and you're going to score at a high level because you have these supercomputers and Pete and Flagg who are going to make very few mistakes. And when they do, it's rare and they learn from them. And they're going to be double machines, and they're going to create advantages. And with those advantages, they're going to kick out and get good shots. And there's the Jaden Bradley's better than Sion James. But he's the Sion James in the sense that he's pressuring the ball. He's making things miserable for the opposing guards. A center who alters everything, both in terms of the shot, but also how the defense can play. They can gamble on the perimeter. They can play drop coverage. They can switch. And they can influence the game with their presence alone. It's Kaman Malawich and Mo Krivas. And Tobe Awaka's a bruiser. Malik Brown's a more switchable defender. But they're similar in the sense that they're a curveball at the big. Positional size of the thing. So I know that got knocked, but I was saying that as a compliment to Arizona before the season. I know it was like, oh, we don't want to be compared to Duke. That team was an all-timer. You absolutely want to be compared to them. And Arizona's really good, really, really good. And they're ahead of where Duke was last year at the same juncture. But most importantly, Arizona can now win games played at a pace that they'd ideally not like to play because their defense is so good. It's so legitimate, and their offensive reproducibility and repeatability is undeniable over time. They're going to score. Even in those games that they have not scored well, they've scored 69 and 71 points, and obviously more than their opponents winning the game, but they've been shooting better shots than their opponents. Arizona right now, unsurprisingly, is a top 15 team in offensive efficiency, but more importantly, because that seems like a given, Arizona is the 11th ranked team on offense and 10th ranked team on defense. And they have not padded their stats by playing cupcakes where they can pressure and no one can get shots because they just cannot generate a physical advantage. They've beaten Florida, UCLA, and UConn, and they've gotten meaningful game pressure stops when they need it. It's a perfect practice for dueling the many gritty teams in the Big 12 that are defensively oriented. And I truly think that Arizona has primed themselves with the non-conference they've set up for all facets of play. When they play Alabama and Auburn, I think Arizona scores 100 points. When they play UCLA, they score 69 and they win. When they play UConn, they have more possessions than they do against UCLA, and they shoot worse, though. And therefore, they don't score much more, but a little bit more, and they got better shots the whole time. They got better shots and controlled the game against UConn in Storrs, Connecticut, with youngsters playing prominent roles. And then they go to Big 12, and it's not going to be as fearsome and as worrying as if you had gone to Hilton Coliseum without having this arduous schedule. Obviously, they've gotten through, and they're 5-0 right now. Arizona, if they plateau and do not improve the rest of the season, will not win a championship. But they have a ton of room to improve. We're going to explore some of the stuff they can improve and talk about the Big 12, why I think Arizona is the front runner to win the Big 12 conference. College football's back, and I could not be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, the energy in the stands, there's nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting the tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up Game Time, and in just a couple taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite college football games as low as $25. It's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I bought tickets. And boy, have I bought a lot of tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. I'm your host, Leif Thulin, and Arizona was picked 4th in the Big 12 preseason poll. I wasn't stunned to see it, and I told you guys in the episode as soon as that happened, I thought it was too low. Arizona was picked 13th in the AP poll preseason, and I said that was too low as well, but I wasn't stunned by the number. For the record, I had Arizona 2nd in the Big 12 preseason and 8th in the country before the season. And by game 1, I was very, very sold on Arizona just because of how they played. They played the way I envisioned, and I talked about how Arizona should be a top 1 or 2 seed lock before the season even began, and before even the scrimmages with St. Mary's and Embry-Riddle. I argued with Ryan Hammer, and I talked about how Arizona is a top 2 seed lock due to the similarities with Duke last year, but more importantly, the personnel that fits the coach. And that's really important in today's day and age because a lot of teams build their rosters with money, and they just say, okay, we got guys, let's tailor make it and make it work. Not many teams can have guys that are worth money that is basically saying they're the top free agents around, but also retention, and they fit the way that the coach wants to play. And I said that Arizona should be top 15 in offense, should be top 20 in pace, should be top 15 in rebounding margin, and I said top 25 on D. And right now they're ahead of schedule on all those, except for pace, and they've played against some notoriously slow teams, and I think that was intentional from Tommy Lloyd. So ahead of schedule is great, especially because I was extremely optimistic, and I outlined my reality before the season, and I talked about how Arizona could be the #1 team in the country by conference play, by mid-conference play, because they're going to start off well. And that's what we're going to get to. The Big 12 is not easy. The Big 12 has 6 teams that are top 20 teams in the country, not just by the rankings. They did to start the season. Kansas fell a little bit in the rankings, but my eyes and based on what I've watched, and I'm pretty confident that Kansas will end up being a top 20 team, especially when they get Darryn Peterson back. And I'm very confident the other 5 being top 15 stalwarts. So I have a vision, and it's twofold. So the Big 12 is really good. Why am I so confident that Arizona will win it? It's not just because of their play, because I already thought that they were a top 2 seed. So I'll lay out my vision. The everydayers have heard this before. I said Arizona would go 11-2 or 12-1 in non-conference play, and they're ahead of my schedule because I thought UConn would be the one loss. And they'd start 11-2 or 12-1 in non-conference, and then start 7-0 in conference play, and be 18-2 or 19-1 through 20 games. And at that point, being 19-1 or 18-2 with wins that they would have over the UConn, over Florida, over UCLA, that would mean you got the #1 spot in the country, unless someone's undefeated. And that's just unlikely. So I guaranteed that happened by mid-January. I also did another prediction where I said Arizona should be top 3 in the country within 3 or 4 weeks because I liked their schedule and I thought they were playing well. That will happen Monday. I guarantee it. And it's only taken 5 games, and they could be #1. And that I laid out part of the reason that this team can win the Big 12. Part of it is that their performance is really impressive. The other part is they should and absolutely should start 7-0 in Big 12. It's hard to have that happen, but let me lay it out for you. Arizona travels to Utah in their opener. Utah is getting smoked by Cal Poly as I record this. Utah nearly lost to Weber State. I'll be at that game. I expect Arizona to win by 20. As of now, Ken Pom has had Arizona really grow on him or the computers. Ken Pom is actually a guy. The computers are what I'm referring to. Ken Pom, before the year, I did some research, and when I made the idea that Arizona should start 7-0 based on my own looking at the schedule and being like, wow, that's easy, I went through Ken Pom, and he had them winning all 7 of those games by slim margins. Ken Pom had Arizona 21-10. I had Arizona 26-5. So him and I, or computers and I, were a little bit off on that, but we were on the same page with Arizona starting 7-0 in Big 12 play. Here's the opening of Big 12 play. At Utah, projected to win by 11. Home against Kansas State, projected to win by 14. Against away against TCU, projected to win by 7. They've already lost to New Orleans. I like Jamie Dixon as a coach a lot, but they've lost to New Orleans. Home against ASU, and the Sun Devils are struggling, projected to win by 17. Away against UCF, that's a tricky one because you're traveling across country and you're playing in southern and central Florida, and you're from Arizona. That's a long distance to travel, and they usually have talent. Coach Johnny Dawkins has guys there, but you're projected to win by 7. None of these are like 2-point projected to wins. These are all substantial numbers. Home against Cincinnati, projected to win by 11. Cincy's not bad, and this is a must-win year for Wes Miller. Home against West Virginia, projected to win by 13. West Virginia's got a few gunners, but I don't think they got the horses to beat Arizona at McHale. So that's 7-0, and I don't think I'm stretching. So to me, that's a head start. Whereas every other top 6 team, because they're not playing these teams, so there's 6 teams that are ahead of the rest in the Big 12. Every other team in the top 6, aside from Arizona, has to play one another. And it makes Arizona and this start absolutely vital to winning the Big 12. If Arizona starts 7-0 or 6-1, they just need to play more or less 500 ball the rest of the way to finish 13-5. A little over 500 ball. I'll give you that. And to me, that's a top 2 seed in the conference because last year, Houston won all but one game. I'd be very surprised if anyone does that this year. And then the second place team was 4 games behind. That was Texas Tech. So let's touch on why without that bonus should it be 5-2, Arizona can still win the conference. Let's talk about that. I think the biggest thing is that Arizona has the most room to grow, but is probably the furthest ahead of the top guys right now. In terms of their performance right now is closer to a top level than others, but also have the most players with a lot of room to grow. They have tons of room to grow. They've had bad shooting nights. They've played slowly. They've had a game where Koa Pete played terribly, and they've survived all of them against elite competition. So if you're shooting well, that makes sense, but you're not shooting well. 3 of the 4 freshmen are relatively unimportant to this point. And I'm not saying that to slight Braden Burries, Ivan Karchenkov, or Dwayne Aristote, but they are not the top 5 in impact. The top 5 in impact is Koa Pete, Jaden Bradley, Mo Krivas, Tobe Awake, Anthony Del Orso. And that may be the rest of the way. But if Karchenkov and Burries, who start right now, play a little better and shoot a little better, this team's offensive potency goes through the roof. Aristote had a 6-3 game, and other than that, he's been fairly silent. And that's 4 of 8 rotational pieces, and a team fully comprised that should be number 1 in the country, not shooting well. Burries is who I thought would be the number 3 scorer on this team, and he's been bad. Maybe he's not the number 3 scorer, but what he has been is a good defender, but he can become a better scorer by virtue of just becoming more confident and used to his role. If it is minimized, he'll knock down open threes. That he can do. I feel like he's pressing to show what he can do, and I think there's so much room to grow. And even if it's just a spot up role and attack closeout role, as opposed to some of that facilitation and get to the rack that we thought he could do, that's super attainable. The championship window opens up more if he can do what we thought he could do. And that's interesting. If Burries, Aristote, Karchenkov shoot better than they have as a trio, and Pete just stagnates, which I think Koa will improve a lot, I really do, that means that Arizona's got a chance to win a championship because they're already that good offensively. And I fully expect Pete to get better throughout the season, to get more consistent, to punish defensive schemes as he sees them. If the season ended today, that perimeter of trio of freshmen, Burries, Aristote, and Karchenkov, they'd be shooting 15 of 43 from 3, due only because Aristote hit 6 threes in the game. From the field, though, Burries is shooting 33%, Karchenkov shooting 27%, and this is only to say that those guys cannot shoot that poorly if they tried. It's just bad luck in a small sample size. So they'll help supplement the paint attack, which is where the bread is buttered. And I also think they'll feel more acclimated. And Arizona's better right now and has more room to grow than any other team. That includes Houston. Houston's ranked higher. Houston's been good. They just beat the brakes off of Ryder. But in their only game against high major competition, they struggled. And they ride freshmen pretty heavily as well. They have things to figure out. And I think 13-5, especially with that start to conference play, is very attainable for Arizona. That's top 2 material in what will be a conference that eats themselves. They'll cannibalize themselves in the second half of conference play. Arizona will take some losses. Iowa State will take some losses. Houston will take some losses. Everyone will take some losses. Coming up next, I'll go through my standings, my breakdowns of each of the teams that will rival Arizona for the tops in the Big 12. All that and more ahead on Locked On Wildcats. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score the next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to Locked On Wildcats. Leif Thulin with you here. Thank you guys for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. We appreciate it. I certainly appreciate you guys joining, and boy, has it been a fun start to the season. So I told you I would give you my reasoning for Arizona winning the Big 12. I led off with they have the best schedule to start, and I think you can front run to hold them off. You'd ideally like to finish strongly too, because that's what really is the case. Like, you're going to be a highly seeded team. I think that much is clear. You're going to have a chance to make the Elite Eight, to make the Final Four. You got to be playing well to do so. But if we're talking simply about winning the Big 12 regular season, having the ability to front run by playing a backloaded schedule allows you a better chance than having a front loaded schedule, meaning it's more difficult at the start because it's harder to make up ground. But that being said, I think there are tiers to the Big 12. And I think from what my eyes have told me right now and my projections to begin the season, they're fairly similar. I told you guys I thought Arizona and Houston were the best two teams in the Big 12 before the season. I still think that's true. So let's talk about Houston briefly. Houston, much like Arizona, is reliant on freshmen, which is rare for Houston. But the difference about Houston than years past is usually they have had their identity of who is the scorer coming back, and they lost LJ Cryer, and they also lost their heartbeat of their team, Juwan Roberts, from last year's national championship runner-up team. That's a lot of points and a lot of different areas of scoring. LJ Cryer can shoot the three as well as anyone. He's the Texas all-time leading scorer or something like that in high school, and he was a fifth-year senior. Juwan Roberts was their late game, get the ball inside, go to the rim, and find some offense by putting the ball on the near the basket and go up and get it off the glass, or if he scores. And then that perpetuates Milos Uzan and Emmanuel Sharp into roles in which they have to be more assertive as scorers, and they move up from the second, third perimeter options to the top two. That said, the leading scorer in 4 of the last 5 games for Houston, 4 straight, has been a freshman named Kingston Flemings. Flemings, as a guard being the leading scorer in the Big 12, I have my doubts just because in terms of the efficiency down the road. Not my doubts about Houston. I think it's hard to be that good of a scorer and have a team that reliant on a player. And I almost think that bodes poorly for Houston, because then you want Sharp and Uzan to take over, and then Flemings is relegated to a lesser role. Sanak is going to get a ton of rebounds. JoJo Tugler is great defensively. Houston's floor is as high as anyone's. They're going to be great defensively. They're probably the best defensive team in the country. They're going to rebound very well. They'll make you uncomfortable when they defend, and they score well enough. They've improved their offense. But typically Houston's teams are not used to relying on freshmen, and I think there are going to be games that they have typically won by being collectively older and tougher that they may lose now. I think they are the number 1 to the number 2 team in the Big 12 alongside Arizona. I've given you my spiel on Arizona many times. I think their formula is as repeatable as anyone's. And if you have a formula to win that is repeatable, like scoring on the inside, playing top 10 defense. I mean, that's the thing. Like, if Mo Krivas, back to Arizona real quickly, if Mo Krivas continues to play like he does, he should be an all Big 12 member of the first or second team, not just honorable mention, just because of his impact. Like, if there's votes for JoJo Tugler and how great he is defensively, he is a more gifted defender than Mo Krivas. But Mo Krivas may mean more on the backside for Arizona because he anchors what is a top 10 defense. And if Arizona's a top 10 defense, you know their offense is going to be there. Whereas Houston's offense can be efficient because they go after and get rebounds. So can Arizona's, but they're better offensively. And if Mo Krivas can play on the back line and alter other teams' shot charts the way he did so drastically against UConn, making them shoot a bunch of twos instead of uncontested threes, where they feel comfortable saying, we're going to chase over everything, not switch anything, and just funnel into Krivas, then you can do that against anyone. against all those meticulous sets. And the defense didn't get lost at all, miscommunicate at all against UConn. So I really believe if this defense is top 15, Arizona should be a number 1 seed in March Madness. That's how strongly I feel. And if you're a number 1 seed, that means you're one of the best teams in your conference, bar none. So those are the top 2. I think there's tier 1. Tier 2 is a 3-team tier. To me, you can spin it however you want in terms of order, and I'll just give it to you in the way I have it written. I think Texas Tech will be the 3rd best team in the Big 12. Texas Tech, I actually just finished watching them play against Wake Forest, and they have 2 absolute studs, first-team All-American candidates. JT Toppin, the Big 12 Player of the Year preseason, and he's a guy who can go and score 20 and 15, and he's going to score. But Arizona has every way to guard Texas Tech in the sense that they can protect the paint, and that's where Toppin wants to operate. And then Christian Anderson is really, really good, passes the ball well, swings it around. They shoot a ton of threes, so they're going to live and die by the 3, and Toppin's going to be their interior presence. Can they rebound well enough will be the question for them. And who's going to step up consistently and be their 3rd best player? Is it Tyree Bryan? Is it Lawan Watts? Can they have someone step up in the big games where one of those 2 All-Americans is off? Because they nearly lost to Wake Forest because neither of them were great, but they weren't bad, and they were sloppy, had a lot of turnovers, and I didn't think they were as good as I thought they would be. And I also saw them play Illinois, and I had a similar thought there. I didn't think defensively they're as good as they should be, and offensively they needed to work some stuff out. Like their identity is in limbo right now. Then you go to BYU. I've seen BYU twice now, and I will see them when you're recording that. When you're listening to this, I will see them play Wisconsin from the Delta Center in Utah, my home state. And I was not impressed by BYU against UConn, even though everyone's saying, oh, UConn, the UConn fans were saying, oh, BYU is better, even though BYU was down 20 in that game. AJ sensational. AJ can get whatever shot he wants. Richie Saunders, I really like. I love the way he plays. Rob Wright, who I really liked at Baylor, over penetrates. He gets down and takes BYU out of rhythm. What they did so well last year with Yegor Demon is the ball was swinging around because he's such an unselfish player, sees the game, pick and roll savant, swings the ball inside Takeda for a dunk or skips it opposite Richie Saunders, hoists up a triple. Right now, Richie Saunders and AJ are off rhythm while Rob Wright over dribbles, and they need to figure that out. I do think Kevin Young can figure it out. I really like the way he's coached. I think their defense is improved. I think their depth is decent, and they have more athletes than BYU typically has had. But I think there's growing pains. And when we're talking about the best team in the Big 12, you got to be consistent for the 18 games that you play. And I don't think they're going to be consistent enough to threaten Arizona or Houston. Then there's Iowa State. Speaking of consistency, they are the model of consistency. They have a big 3 that can threaten just about any team. Tamin Lipsey, Joshua Jefferson, and Milan Momcilovic are 3 of the best players in the Big 12. They all will be on Big 12 all conference teams, first team, second team, honorable mention. I don't know how you're going to spin it. But what I'll tell you is I see them as a regular season contender, postseason pretender, because I don't think they have enough horses offensively, and their defense will be great, and they'll be really good, but they don't have the Curtis Jones, the Keyshawn Gilberts they had last year. Unfortunately for them, last year, they got hurt. I thought that team was really good. This team will be very good defensively. They're going to pressure the ball. They're going to make it hard for you, and then offensively, they've got 3 really good players, but none of them are dynamic, beat you by themselves guys. And I think that helps them in the regular season, but it limits their ceiling. High floor, low ceiling team there. And I think they're probably the 3rd best right now in the conference above BYU and Texas Tech, but I don't think they're better than those teams down the road. Then there's Kansas. Kansas impressed me without Darryn Peterson against Duke because they showed that they had some resolve. They had some guys that can be Robins to the amazing Darryn Peterson. But Darryn Peterson's got a hamstring issue. Say if that persists, they really don't have much of a chance. And then secondly, they don't shoot it very well. So teams can pack it in and make Darryn Peterson hit tough shot after tough shot. Darryn Peterson's capable. I think he'll score 40 numerous times. I think he's going to have a season similar to Cade Cunningham, similar to Michael Beasley. But those teams didn't win at all. They weren't the best in the Big 12. And I don't think Kansas quite has the horses like they typically do. That said, Bill Self's a really good coach. This team seems to be determined, but they just don't have the offensive talent to really compete. Those teams are the top 6. So once again, my tiers are Arizona, Houston, tier 1. Tier 2, Iowa State, Texas Tech, and BYU. And tier 3, Kansas. And if you want a 7th team, I think Baylor's the 7th best. But I don't think they're threatening there. So I really think Arizona's got a great chance. I think their balance is better than those teams. I think their offense will be more potent than any of those teams. Maybe not in the sense of like who's going to score 100 the most, because I think there's a world Texas Tech score and BYU score 100 a lot because they play really fast and shoot a ton of threes. But Arizona is going to be more repeatable in their formula to have great offense. They're going to be better defensively than those teams as well. And I think their balance of basketball is the best in the country so far. So with that said, I think Arizona by a Monday should be number one in the AP poll. Wouldn't be surprised if it's Purdue, but Purdue could lose to Texas Tech in Baja Mar, and that would help because Houston, the only other team that would be ahead, has not lost, but they barely beat Auburn, and Auburn went to overtime with Bethune-Cookman. So there's a world Arizona's number one on Monday. Either way, top tier team should be number one, and in my opinion, should be one or two in the Big 12. Thank you guys for listening. Really appreciate your guys' support as always. Thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen. And for your second listen, check out Locked On Big 12. Drake Toll breaks down the most exciting conference in college sports, from the rivalries, the championships, and every game in between. Find Locked On Big 12 on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.